This story has been presented in headlines as a morality play about money, but the real issue is far deeper and far more uncomfortable for the tabloids to confront. It is about long-term family estrangement, trauma boundaries, and the repeated weaponization of a private medical crisis to attack Meghan Markle and, by extension, Prince Harry. From the very first reports, the focus was not compassion for an elderly man facing amputation, but an aggressive narrative demanding that Meghan be publicly shamed into paying. That framing alone tells us everything about how unfairly this situation is being handled. Thomas Markle Sr. is 81 years old and recently underwent a 3-hour emergency operation described as life or death. That is serious and frightening. Compassion for anyone facing that kind of medical emergency should be automatic. But compassion does not mean rewriting history or ignoring the context that led to this estrangement. Meghan did not wake up one morning and randomly decide to cut off her father. This has been a long, painful process marked by public betrayals, media deals, and repeated violations of her privacy. The reports tell us that Thomas Markle Sr. relocated first to Mexico and then, earlier this year, to the Philippines. That was his personal decision. His United States Medicare and Medicaid coverage does not extend abroad. That is not Meghan's policy failure. That is a systemic issue with American health care and an individual choice about where to live. Yet somehow the burden of that choice is being laid at Meghan's door as if she personally designed international insurance law. We are told that a GoFundMe page has raised just over $4,500. The page was set up not by Thomas Markle Sr. himself, but by a friend of his son, Thomas Markle Jr. That detail matters because it shows once again how intermediaries control the narrative. Meghan is not speaking publicly. She is not fundraising. She is not selling interviews. Others are doing that and then pointing fingers at her. Thomas Markle Jr. has been very vocal. He says he has drained his savings and covered thousands of dollars in hospital bills. That may well be true, and it is undoubtedly stressful. But his public commentary once again includes direct attacks on Meghan. He tells the press that the one person with the means to help is doing nothing. That statement ignores reality and context, and it deliberately invites public outrage against Meghan. What is almost completely ignored in the reporting is that Meghan's spokesperson confirmed she wrote a private letter to her father after his surgery. That is significant. Meghan reached out privately. She did not announce it. She did not post it. She did not leak it. The contents remain unknown because she respects privacy. That alone shows a level of dignity and restraint that is rarely acknowledged. Boundaries are not cruelty. This is a crucial point that Sussex supporters understand deeply. Meghan has been clear for years that she wants private relationships handled privately. Her father chose to repeatedly sell stories about her to the media before and after her wedding. He staged paparazzi photos. He gave interviews that contradicted her lived experience. Trust once broken repeatedly is not easily rebuilt. The tabloids constantly erase that history because it complicates their preferred narrative. It is much easier to paint Meghan as cold and wealthy than to examine how many times her boundaries were crossed. When people say she should just pay, they are not asking for help. They are demanding submission. They want her to publicly prove her worthiness in a way no other royal is ever asked to do. Let us also talk about Prince Harry, because he is dragged into this as well. An artificial intelligence-generated image was circulated showing Harry at Thomas Markle Sr.'s hospital bedside. This image was completely fake. Thomas Markle Sr. himself condemned it as disgusting and gross. Think about that for a moment. Someone created a fake emotional moment to manipulate public opinion and fuel anger. This is not harmless internet nonsense. It is a form of emotional blackmail. It is designed to say, look, Harry can be there, so why is Meghan not doing more? It exploits illness and family pain for clicks. Harry has been very clear about how media intrusion destroyed his mother's peace and ultimately her life. Seeing fake images used to pressure his wife must be deeply disturbing. Thomas Markle Sr. called out the fake image forcefully, and he was right to do so. But the same moral clarity is rarely applied to the constant drip feed of hostile commentary about Meghan. Why is it acceptable to lie visually, but also acceptable to lie emotionally by stripping away years of context and presenting Meghan as heartless? There is also a deeper issue here about misogyny and racialized expectations. Meghan is expected to endlessly give emotionally, financially and publicly while absorbing abuse in silence. When she does act privately, it is dismissed as not enough. When she sets boundaries, they are framed as cruelty. This standard is not applied equally to others in the royal sphere. We should also question why Thomas Markle Sr. continues to speak to tabloids like the Mirror. These are not neutral platforms. They have a long history of antagonism toward Meghan and Harry. Every quote becomes another headline. Every complaint becomes another excuse to generate outrage clicks. If the goal were truly healing, the approach would look very different. The constant public pressure also undermines any chance of reconciliation. You cannot rebuild trust while selling quotes about private family matters. You cannot demand compassion while monetizing conflict. Meghan knows this. Harry knows this. That is why they choose silence and private communication instead of public performance. Some supporters say every little bit helps, and that is true when it comes to fundraising. People who want to donate are free to do so. But donation does not come with the right to publicly shame someone else. Meghan is not responsible for fixing every consequence of decisions made by others, especially when those others have repeatedly harmed her. It is also worth remembering that Meghan and Harry have been very clear about where their money goes. They support charitable causes through Archewell. They invest in mental health initiatives, women's empowerment, and community resilience. They do not use philanthropy as spectacle. That consistency matters. When critics say Meghan has the means, they are often relying on exaggerated figures about media deals. These numbers are thrown around without nuance about taxes, expenses, long-term planning, and charitable commitments. Wealth is not an infinite tap. Even if it were, no one is entitled to it by default. More importantly, money does not fix broken trust. Writing a check does not undo years of public betrayal. In fact, it could reinforce a pattern where going to the press is rewarded. Meghan understands that dynamic, and refusing to participate in it is not heartless. It is healthy. The conversation should really be about healthcare systems and elder care. An 81-year-old man living abroad without adequate coverage is a warning sign of a broken system. Instead of attacking Meghan, why are we not asking why international retirees are left so vulnerable? Why is crowdfunding now a substitute for proper medical care? There is also an element of personal responsibility that is rarely mentioned. Relocating to another country comes with risk, especially at an advanced age. Those risks need planning. Expecting an estranged adult child to absorb the consequences of that choice is unfair. Meghan's private letter is perhaps the most human detail in this entire story. It suggests empathy without spectacle. Care without conditions being publicly negotiated. That is what genuine compassion looks like, not performative generosity demanded by tabloids. Harry and Meghan have spent years advocating for mental health. They know the toll that public shaming takes. They know that constant pressure can push people to breaking points. Protecting their peace is not selfish. It is survival. The fake image episode should have been a turning point for media ethics. Instead, it was briefly condemned and then forgotten while the blame narrative continued. That tells us that outrage against Meghan is the product, not the truth. Supporters of the Sussexes are not saying Thomas Markle Sr. deserves no compassion. They are saying compassion does not require sacrificing boundaries or submitting to abuse. Two truths can exist at once. Someone can be ill and also have contributed to estrangement. The relentless demand that Meghan prove her goodness financially reveals more about society than about her. It exposes how quickly empathy turns into entitlement when a woman refuses to perform suffering on command. Harry and Meghan have consistently chosen privacy over spectacle, even when it costs them public approval. That choice aligns with their values and with the life they are building for their children. It is a long-term decision, not a headline response. In the end, this story is not about a GoFundMe total or a dollar amount. It is about boundaries, dignity, and the right to heal away from public coercion. Meghan Markle is allowed to be compassionate privately and firm publicly. Prince Harry is allowed to protect his wife from the same media cruelty that shaped his childhood. That is not heartless. That is growth.